Hello, I am inserting this clip at the beginning of the video because I forgot to talk about what I'm going to be reading next month. I'm still getting used to this no TBRs thing. So, no more TBRs, but I am still going to announce the buddy reads that we're doing every single month because those are still things that I'm going to prioritize every month. So over on my Patreon, we always buddy read 2 books together. This month we have a sufficiently advanced magic, there's no A at the beginning, which is a fantasy, and a never-ending story, which is a classic fairy tale, I believe translated from German. I've never read either of these, but I think they're both pretty well known, so come join us if you want to discuss. And then I have a second Discord server for people who can't or don't want to join the Patreon so that we can buddy read over there as well. And this month we're buddy reading The Crier's War, which is also a pretty popular book. Again, I really don't know anything about it, but it's the one that won the poll, and it has a pretty cover. So these are the books that I am definitely reading this month because of buddy reads, or at least attempting this month because of the buddy reads, and then everything else is up in the air. Links to the Patreon and the other Discord are linked in the description, as well as these books if you want to check them out, as well as all the books I'm going to talk about in this video. Go. Okay, so today I'm going to do my monthly wrap-up. We're going to talk about all the books that I finished in the month of July, some of which you have no idea that I read because I didn't do the reading vlog last week. So in the last week and a half, I've read some books that might surprise you. I don't know why I'm wording it like that. I do have to split this video up into 2 parts because I'm filming this a little bit early, so the last several books, or a couple books, will be filmed later. But before we get into the stats, a shout out to today's sponsor, Squarespace. From websites to online stores to marketing tools to analytics, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that helps you to build your website and grow your business. But we'll talk more about them at the end of the video. And now into stats. So I read 7 books, 3 manga, and 2 graphic novels this month. For star ratings, I pretty much read exclusively 4-star books, but I enjoyed most everything I read. For genres, I read 2 sci-fi, 1 horror, 1 literary fiction, 1 fantasy novel, and all of the graphic novels and manga that I read were also fantasy, and 2 romance. All of the books I read were adult. For manga, I read 1 adult, 2 young adult, and for graphic novels, they were both young adult. Okay, the first thing I finished this month was a graphic novel, and that was The Rift, which is the 3rd in the Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novels series. I have a full review for it. Link it up there. This is my least favorite of all of them. Honestly, I wasn't that interested in either of the storylines. All of these follow 2 plot lines, and I wasn't that interested in either of them. One was definitely more interesting than the other. It was still a good time. I still gave it 3 stars. I still enjoyed reading it, but I was happy to move on to the next thing when I finished it. These graphic novels definitely have their flaws. I think that some of the characters are great and a great representation of the characters that we knew in the show. I think some of these characters are not translating well to paper. There are some awkward things, but for the most part, I'm enjoying reading these so much. I'm enjoying getting more Avatar content so much. And between rewatching the Avatar series with my husband, he's watching it for the first time, and watching Korra for the first time, which I know it's taking me a million years. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. These are adding so much depth to both series, so I'm just having a really good time with them. Next thing I read was a novella, the first in the Murderbot series. This is called All Systems Red. It's the first novella, I already said that, sci-fi. It follows Murderbot, which is a robot meant to be a killer, and it's bad at its job. It just likes watching soap operas all day, but when it's assigned a crew of humans, it is sassy and rude and pessimistic, but also very, very sweet, very layered, and develops an attachment. It's really short, I won't tell you too much, but to me, this first novella was really, the purpose of it wasn't to build a world, wasn't to give depth to our side characters. Really, the purpose of this was just for us to get to know Murderbot and fall for this character that we'll be following. And I think that this little novella did that very, very well. I will definitely be continuing on with this series. I have heard that the other novellas start expanding on some of the things that this one didn't really touch on very much, and I'm excited for that. I'm also really excited to get to the novel and just see what this author is going to do with more pages, because I really did want more pages, but you know, novella. it's fine. But this was really funny and such a quick, easy, enjoyable read that I can see myself just popping these in here and there throughout my reading month just as a quick kind of buffer book. Not because it's a great story, but I just mean that as how quick it is to read and how funny it is. It's a great book to throw in between, you know, big fantasies or something like that. I also read the next volume of the Full Metal Alchemist. I think I think this was 13 or this was 12. I'll put it on the screen. I can't remember. Anyway, there's not much to say. 12 or 13 volumes into the series. I'm enjoying myself a lot. It's getting darker and crazier, and we're starting to open up more threads of what in the world is going on, changing what I thought I knew about certain things, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Next is Mexican Gothic, which is an adult horror novel, and I will say this, if you're new to adult or new to horror, I think that this fits both of those for someone who is more new to the category or the genre. This is set in Mexico in the 50s. It follows our protagonist, who is a 22-year-old who lives with her father, and her cousin sends them a letter. And the letter, her cousin doesn't seem like herself, and she's talking about how her husband's family, who she lives with, they're trying to kill her, and this house is haunted, and she's scared. So our protagonist goes to visit her cousin, and things seem weird. Her cousin isn't the same, and this house and the family are strange. This is a Gothic horror, which is my favorite kind of thriller and horror. Also, I apologize to everybody not from the US that has to hear me say the word horror so many times. I don't like the way we Americans say it either, but that's how we say it. Anyway, the Gothic tones of this book were everything I want out of a Gothic novel. It hit the Gothic feel so well, and I so rarely read well, it's set in the 50s, but it's a modern book. It was just released, and I so rarely read a new release that has Gothic tones. It's usually classic books, so it was really fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. That said, the horror element of it was low. I personally would put it at like a 3 on the horror scale, and then maybe it amps up to a 5 near the end, but honestly, the scary elements, the horror elements aren't even really spooky, scary, what's going to happen next on the edge of your seat. It's more like gross. There are gross things happening that freak you out. So if that sounds like you, like if you want some light horror and a really, oh my gosh, the environment of this Gothic novel was phenomenal. I still really, really enjoyed this despite wishing that it was more spooky, scary. I really wanted the author to lean more into the horror elements, and I have a couple of other nitpicks, but despite all that, I still enjoyed this novel so much. So if all of that appeals to you, please pick it up because it was a great book. Oh, there's also like several content warnings that I would want to give anyone that is considering picking it up on my recommendation. So check out my Goodreads review. I have spoiler and spoiler free. I have tags and stuff on that review to give you more detail of what I did and didn't like. And I also have the content warnings hidden under a spoiler tag, so you don't have to see it if you don't want to, but if you do, I recommend checking that out. Next on my list is Smoke and Shadow, I think. Yep, that's what it's called. This is the 4th Avatar graphic novel. Again, there's a review. It's linked. I loved this one. So far, of the 4, this is my second favorite, and it's the one that follows immediately after the events of my favorite, the second one. May is back. Iroh plays a good solid role in it as well. And I just really enjoyed the storyline of this and the conflict that we had. Azula there's so many things that I enjoyed about this. Again, these graphic novels aren't perfect. I don't necessarily think the translation from screen to page was flawless, but I'm enjoying myself so much. Then I read Berserk, the first volume of Berserk, and I guess I had pretty mixed feelings. There are things that I loved and things that I didn't. It is the first volume, so of course I have some grace for those things. I would say that the setting was really, really interesting. The driving thread of what's going on was I want to understand so much. There was clearly a lot happening, and whatever is going on, I I was so excited to keep reading. That said, it did have the flaw of, which I'm told this gets better, of the main character is like, blood and guts and rub some spit on it. I'm a man, manly man, man. Very, very much like, I really want to project to you that this guy is a tough guy. Really over the top that way, which made me roll my eyes a lot. But the driving thread of what was happening was so interesting to me that I kind of didn't care about that all that much. That said, unfortunately, I'm not going to continue on with Berserk. I have been warned that this book, that this manga series has a lot of things in it that I'm not going to be okay with reading. I talked to my friend about it, and personally, I can't handle graphic depictions of rape or child harm. And my friend, who this is his favorite manga series, told me, stop reading now. So I am going to quit just for my own self-preservation, but I'm also a little bit disappointed because I could tell that there was so much potential just in that first volume, which I think in and of itself is pretty cool because a lot of times the first volume is, you know, ground laying, fine, it takes a little bit. And this definitely had its flaws for the first volume, but also I'm so curious about where we're going with this. But I won't find out. Next book I finished was The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. You know what? Check out the Goodreads review. I explain it all there. There's also a reading vlog where I rant a little while. Okay, this is about a 39-year-old man who runs a bookshop. His wife recently passed away, and he's a grumpy man. And something is stolen from him, which is unfortunate. Then a baby is left with him, which changes his life a lot, but it's not unfortunate. And this is his storied life. Kind of, except that there's a ton of skipping around and we miss major events and it's... Ugh. I love the first half of this. I loved watching him figure out how to be a dad, figure out how to live his life, softening up. It was really, really sweet. Did not like the direction the second half went, especially didn't like the direction the last bit went. I feel like this author, I could tell what she tried to do. She tried to explore some deeper topics, but I don't like the execution of it. Not only do I not like the execution of the deeper topics, which I go into why in that Goodreads review, but also there is this convoluted plot convenience that is so ridiculous and serves, in my opinion, no purpose. Also in the Goodreads review. I wanted to love this, and the first half of it, I genuinely thought I would. I really thought I would. The only reason this is 2 stars is because of how much I enjoyed that first half. But it disappointed me so much in the end. I get why people like this. Love what you love. If this is a book that you loved, I understand why people love this book, and I totally respect it. I just did not like the execution. Next book I finished was Words of Radiance. I have, at this point, had been reading it all throughout the month while I read all those shorter books, which is why there were so many short books to kind of like give me a little break in between an over 1,000-page epic fantasy. I needed a lot of little breaks. But I finally finished Words of Radiance, and it was an amazing reading experience. This is my second time reading through the Stormlight Archive, or at least the 3 books that are currently published. I will be reading Oathbringer again over on Patreon with everybody else in September. And I enjoyed reading it. This was the first time I read through, this was my favorite of the 3. And I reckon it'll stay that way. I love these characters. I love how much happens in this book. Corey and I, my husband and I, recorded an hour-long discussion about so many things and yet still couldn't cover it all. Link it up there if you missed it. I am excited to move on to book 3. I'm also happy that we're gonna have a little bit of break between them because it's a commitment. And the last book on this list the last book that I'm gonna be talking about this time, there it is. I'll be back with more, is One to Watch. This is a romance book that I would say go in not necessarily expecting romance, more expecting a contemporary with a focus on Okay, so One to Watch is a bachelor. It's a bachelor book. So if you enjoy the TV series, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, you should definitely read this book. If you don't enjoy it, you may be less likely to like it. So there is a TV series exactly like The Bachelor, and this main character is a fashion blogger, and she makes a comment that on her blog that she is frustrated to see how little body diversity, or diversity in general, this show showcases. It stirs up a ruckus, it goes viral, and then she gets to be the next Bachelorette. Whatever, their main squeeze. She gets to be the next main squeeze. Really, what this book is about is this character. She is such a strong, confident, amazing person. A lot of her personal struggles that she goes through as a plus-size fashion blogger are so brutally honest, the way that they're portrayed. But not only that, one thing that I really relate to about her is her being in the public eye and some of the things that are said to women in the public eye, and the way people will sometimes talk to us. And the brutal honesty of that was so great to read. Her strength and her perseverance are amazing, but also the insecurities that she faces throughout this book are so relatable and are so, again, just brutally honest and raw. And the arc that she gets through all these experiences. I definitely don't think that the focus at all in this book is on the romance, and I go into more explanation of that in my Goodreads review, so again, check that out. So go in expecting to follow a phenomenal character to follow in a setting that is exactly the brand of The Bachelor kind of drama. I really enjoyed this. I have a couple of things that I didn't think were perfect, but I loved this book. I definitely recommend it if any of that sounds interesting to you. And now I'm back because I did finish a couple more books this month because I had to pre-film my wrap-up this time. So I also finished Axiom's End, which I have a whole dedicated review for, so I won't really say much about it. It is Lindsay Ellis, popular YouTuber's debut sci-fi novel, and it was enjoyable. It's a first contact alien story, government conspiracy, kind of a standard plotline for sci-fi, and I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun to read. I just kind of wish that it had deviated off of the beaten path and done a few things more unique to this book, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I have a lot more thoughts over there. I also finished the 14th volume of Full Metal Alchemist. Again, every single volume, the stakes get raised and there's more information given. I feel like there were like 4 volumes in a row where I felt like we were just kind of in a standstill and we weren't getting much progress, and I'm so impressed that that's just not happening at all. Every single volume, I'm getting more depth out of this story and more depth out of what actually went on back then and what's happening right now, and oh my goodness, where is it all leading us? That's all. I don't know how to talk about mangas this deep into a series. I'll do a full discussion video about it when I do finish the series. And then I also read the final book in the On Luna Time series. This one is called Dear Luna, and it is the final installation of the trilogy. And of course, it was really sweet. This is a romance that I just really dig, and the series has its flaws, right? But it's one of those things. It's one of those weird books where the elements that I enjoy so much that I kind of just let the elements that I don't enjoy slide, which usually isn't how I am as a reader, but it works for this series, and I just have such a good time with it. I don't know, I can't help but love it. So those are all the books that I read this month. And now on to our ad from Squarespace. Squarespace has impacted lives all around the world. Listen to these totally true and authentic testimonies that we gathered from real customers. I have a fan page for my cat. I take pictures of him all day long. Sleeping, sitting, playing. He's the cutest. And Squarespace's sharing tools are the best. They have these little blocks where people can share from my website onto their social places, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the places I frequent. It keeps me popular. It helps me find new viewers who love my cat. I have 23 people following my blog. I'm a fashion blogger, and Squarespace's powerful blogging tool helps me to share photos, stories, videos, and updates. I can categorize, share, and schedule posts to make my content work for me.
Squarespace is the best website design anyone in the world has ever used. So check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the link in my description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I recommend Squarespace. We all do. So go check it out now.
So those are the books that I read this month. Thank you everybody that joined me. Be sure to chat with me more about it in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.